Hi, I'm Fiona Leibowitz, and today I'm here to speak to you a little bit about the stress of sex. So this is a course that I've put together specifically for Goddess University, and we're really exploring what it is that creates stress in our sexualities. So I think for many of us, we're quite set on the fact that it needs to have come from some kind of abusive situation. And I go a little deeper into that and say, well, actually, I think that safety and fear in the sexual arena is very much, it's based on several things. I think one of the things that we want to look at is, first of all, our belief systems around sexuality, and those are formed at a very, very, very young age. So we get input from our parents, from our family, from our schools, from our teachers, from our places of worship like churches or synagogues or our various religious systems that guide us particularly towards being a particular way in our sexualities. And for many of us, this can also be interpreted as quite scary. And some of us have had quite rigid upbringings relating to our sexuality. And I think for many of us, something that is so innately natural and so normal and so much a form of our natural expression of self, what can happen is that a suppression of our sexuality through particular belief systems may in turn create some negative aspects within the human organism. In terms of sexual abuse, again, I think that this is a huge area where we're mostly tuned into forms of, let's say, penetration. Sexual abuse doesn't have to go that far. Sexual abuse can be simply being exposed to inappropriate behaviors or a particular family member doing something inappropriate in front of that child, and that again can be considered abusive. So we don't have to go to the extremes of something like penetrative sex to know that just being exposed to something that's not child appropriate or even appropriate can create huge issues in the sexual body. So the other thing that we want to look at with stressful sex is what actually happens in the human organism and what takes the organism or the human body to that place where it either shuts down or it wants too much or it has different kinds of drives happening for it that can be really uncomfortable or really overwhelming, or numbing out or shutting down or lots of different ways of expressing itself sexually. And we do want to look at what happens physically. We have a very big muscle that's called the psoas muscle. That's PSOAS, and the psoas muscle is very responsible for creating either easiness or tightness in our bodies. It starts in the mid-back and it wraps around the hip and groin area and is the only muscle that actually links the upper body to the lower body. So it links the top to the legs. And it's responsible for running and fighting, and also when we need to not be seen or not be heard and we need to go into a freeze or a shutdown, it's also engaged then. So psoas muscle is a super duper important muscle in terms of the fight, flight, freeze process that happens in the human organism when it's going through a stressful or traumatic situation. At the same time, there's all kinds of stress hormones that are released into the system, and one of these being adrenaline, which creates the system to go into the fight-flight scenario and gives it extra strength and sort of durability in those moments to do what is required to move through the situation comfortably. And what we see happening is huge amounts of adrenaline buildup, as well as other stress hormones that sit around in the body and create a sense of a dis-ease for the person. So this dis-ease that I speak about can manifest in various formats. So with the psoas muscle being contracted and tight, it can manifest as back pain, lower back pain, pain in the knees, pain in the hip flexors. For many women, they report an inability to open up sexually. So that would be where the vagina is really, really tight. Psoas muscle goes all the way through those pubicoccygeusis muscles. So it's really, really intrinsically linked to our safety. So how safe do we feel within the sexual arena and with our particular partner at the time? And is that giving us value in terms of safety? And if it isn't, then psoas will for sure pick up that there's something not right in the room or something not right in the situation that's bringing up fear and anxiety, which means a bit of shutdown in the actual body. So for most of us, I'm sure that we've experienced something happening for us in the sexual arena on occasion that may not be our norm. It may be that sometimes we're really open sexually and we're able to really feel and be present and be there for our partners. Whereas other times we feel that we need to go into some kind of fantasy, or we need to shut down, we need to maybe dissociate, we need to maybe do a shopping list, or conjure up a recipe in our heads, or just have some kind of physical shutdown where the male may find that there's some kind of erectile dysfunction issue, the female may find that there's some kind of vaginal dryness issue, or that there's pain, or it may not even necessarily have to appear in the genital area. It might be that we just find that there's inflammation or stress or tightness that's appearing in other areas of the body that's telling us that the situation for us is not feeling optimal, it's not feeling safe, and we need to somehow be removed from that situation, otherwise it might feel extremely anxious to be there. So sexual stress, really is affected by psoas, and psoas is not the only thing in the human organism that tells us about safety. There's also something called the vagus nerve, and that sits at the top of the C-spine, and it indicates for us, again, an element of what is going on around us. Are we safe? Are we do we need to check out this person? Do we like the way this person looks at us? Do we find that this person's listening to us? Do we find that this person's able to have eye contact with us? Do we find that this person is open, has an open face, so that we feel safe with this other human being? And I think, again, we all know the difference between seeing somebody approach us with a lovely, open, healthy, warm smile and demeanor, as opposed to somebody who's quite contracted and tight and is unable to offer us a sense of eye contact or a sense of connection. So we explore with TRE for sexual health. We look at some of the physical aspects that actually happen in the human body when the body is not feeling safe in a particular situation. And we look at it primarily in the sexual arena, where we, as I said earlier, we have all sort of experienced something that it doesn't feel good for us. It doesn't feel switched on, it doesn't feel alive, it doesn't feel juicy, it doesn't feel completely open and transparent, and it doesn't feel where we can be present. And I think that the present situation is also a huge one, because without presence we can't be really connected. Many of us feel or would notice if we had to look real hard that our breath often stops or shuts down, and again that doesn't contribute to being present. So it's one of those really, really important things. When we want to connect, or when we want to express something with another human being, to be present and to be able to fully embrace the situation, as opposed to being dissociated. And dissociation again can take many formats, where people need to go into fantasy, or they need to go to a place in their minds. It may have been a previous sexual experience that turned them on, or it might be some particular fetish or some particular sexual fantasy that they need to connect to in order to actually feel something. And they can't really be present with the situation that they're in, because that doesn't feel safe enough for them. So they need to disconnect. And disconnected sex is not ideal. I think many of us have experienced it and may even be experiencing it. And when we've experienced something that's different, i.e. connected sex, we realize the beauty that has to offer us, and the depth that we can go with that. And the ability to connect on a much deeper level, and really the incredible blessings that we get when we have desire and intimacy combined in a beautiful package, that grows and expands and has enough space to be able to explore. And TRE for sexual health offers us this ability, without having to talk about our issues, without having to go into too much detail about what it is that drives us or triggers us, or makes us need for certain situations, or really anything private or personal. And I know that sex is an incredibly private subject for many people. And it's not something that we necessarily want to sit and talk to anybody about. Again, we need to feel incredibly safe to find the right people who will offer us a healing space to explore this really important subject area. And I think that this is rare, and I think for many of us, we don't have access to those types of people. So we need to almost self-regulate that process for ourselves, where we take back our power and say, well, actually, hold on a minute, this is my sexuality, I can hold it, I can handle it, and I can drive it and take it forward, even though I'm not maybe a therapist or a psychologist or somebody who's trained. I have a body and I understand it, and I know when it's on and I know when it's off, and I know when it's switched on and I know when it's switched off, and I know what feels good and I know what doesn't feel good. So we take our power back and we say, well, let's see what we can do with some somatic work, with some body-based work, where we actually start asking the body to give us some sense of what's going on for us. With TRE, we really get a great understanding of where the body is sitting in terms of contractedness. So we're able to understand more a sense of release and a sense of contraction, a sense of tightness and a sense of softness. We start really understanding sensation and feeling a lot better in the body, and being able to identify where we are right now. Are we open and soft and not defended? Or are we defended and hard, and we've got our shield on, and we're needing to be wary of who we're around and how we behave? So we start really getting the understanding of the textures of what's okay and what's not okay. And once a person discovers TRE, they start building on that, and they start having this relationship with their bodies, where their bodies start talking to them and telling them what's okay for them and what's not. So very often in the sexual arena, we'll be with another person, and we'll feel something, and very often we'll ignore it, or we'll dismiss it as whatever, that's just a thought, or that's just a feel, and not act on it, not look at it, not feel it. TRE gives us the tools to be able to assess the situation much more clearly, to be able to have boundaries within that situation, to be able to express ourselves in terms of what is okay for us and what's not okay for us, to be able to express our needs, our desires, to be able to talk about what makes us feel safe or ask for what makes us feel safe. And with that comes an enormous release of some of the tight and contracted patterns that we may have been carrying around with us for many years, or some of the blockages that have stopped us from being our full, yummy, juicy selves within the sexual arena, and allow us to go forward and explore on much deeper levels, and also much more with much more growth. So the growth within our own personal sexuality also grows our creativity. It also grows our finances. It grows a whole lot of stuff that we may not have considered. You know, its base chakra, it's a powerful area. It holds a whole lot of our root power and of our power in this world to go out and be successful and to be the creative beings that we need to be. So I'm going to leave you with some of that information, and hope that you were able to digest bits of it and understand kind of where we're going with this program. I'm really, really excited, because I think that there's a lot of people out there in the world that have deep understanding about themselves on a sexual level, but maybe have forgotten a little bit about the body. And the body's not just there to have an orgasm. I mean, with TRE, we learn and we move towards having fuller, more expanded and extended orgasm. But it's not just about that. It's really, really about opening up to something that we all have, we all want to express, healthier and fuller and what works for us. But there's a whole lot of stuff that keeps us back. And this really is a way of moving into a balanced, healthy place of doing our sexuality in this world, and without shame, without guilt, without pain. And it really can be beautiful, and it can be amazing, and it can be extremely sharing and giving if we get it right, and we start tending to this part of ourselves that is so important and life-giving. So I wish you goodbye and have a beautiful rest of your day.